Welcome to Busted Speakers. I'm Kush,
And I'm Alex.
and today we're reviewing Slowdive by Slowdive.
Yes.
And so Slowdive, we're on that My Bloody Valentine sort of train with shoegaze music back a while ago. This is like another revival album for a band. It's been about 20 years, I would say, since their last record. The last record, which was, I think, Pygmalion. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yes.
So I'm a huge Slowdive fan. Suvaki is probably one of my favorite albums of all time. So I was excited. I was really excited to hear this, but also kind of hesitant because I didn't know like if they would return to like very shoegazy roots, or they'd maybe switch it up a little bit. So I was hesitant, but I was also very excited because obviously the hiatus, you don't know what's going to happen during the hiatus. But I am thoroughly happy with what they put out this album. I am so happy that this happened. This album is here. I love this album to pieces. Is it my favorite album of the year? No, it isn't. But I think this really just, assuming it's not a one-time thing, this really gets me excited for what Slowdive has next to offer.
Yeah. Again, I'm a really big fan of Slowdive, and I haven't even checked out much of My Bloody Valentine aside from the album Isn't Anything. Yes, not even the big flagship one by them. But yeah, so I view Slowdive as more of the definitive shoegaze gods in my mind that probably a lot of other people don't because they know My Bloody Valentine. Souvlaki is also one of my favourite albums. And yeah, I'm pretty impressed by this. Definitely have the same sort of sound I was wanting. Definitely haven't lost their shoegaze capabilities, and essentially, if you like Slowdive, I don't know how you couldn't like this.
I think in certain songs they're not as shoegazy. They sometimes go into the post rock. They go into the more rock style, but which are all performed very well. So I can't really complain that they kind of stray from the shoegaze. And I like how they're incorporating different elements because I feel like within those 20 years they've had time to mature and develop their sound a little bit more. So I'm really happy with the output they've put out. There's quite a few of my favorite songs on here. Just starting off, the intro was just gorgeous. It had the loud synths building up, and it was very subtle instrumentation. But one of the complaints is the vocals are so indecipherable on this album.
Yeah.
Even like Genius, I had to go on Genius and look up lyrics. Most of it was just question marks because no one knew what they were saying.
I thought it was because Neil Halstead, who, by the way, legend, he takes the lead vocals as he did before. For some reason, people elevate Rachel, the female lead vocalist, to the point where they think she was the whole great vocalist of the band. And yeah, she did some great stuff, like Machine Gun, one of my favourite songs, I'd say. And she is really good on the album, but I actually prefer when Neil takes the lead than her, just because he's a bit more decipherable. But I actually like her more as sort of like a background / lead co-lead vocalist. I don't know what you thought, Kush, about that.
I don't really have a preference either way. I think both of them bring a unique element to the table so that it does keep it different and doesn't become kind of monotonous. As we've seen them at the Drive-In album, the single vocals did become kind of monotonous about a portion into it.
Yeah.
But this album was very. This album brought a lot of unique elements to it so that its 45-minute or so runtime didn't feel very long or very just drawn out. As a lot of shoegaze albums, not Slowdive specifically, but a lot of other shoegaze bands have a problem that their album feels very drawn out because of the time it takes to develop all the sounds in a single song. But they've done it really well in here, and it didn't feel as long as some albums do feel.
My favourite song was probably Sugar for the Pill. I really like this one because it feels like it has the strongest structure beyond the shoegaze background. The songwriting is so prevalent, and Neil's vocals really shine beyond pleasant background elements of the production. I thought the structure of this was really strong and clear, and the chorus was actually quite good, and there's an odd dissonant atmosphere, and I think I like it more than all the songs before it. Maybe Slow Mo, the open, is at least equal, but I thought it was the better of the two singles, at least, Sugar for the Pill.
Was the other single Star Roving?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was my least favorite song on the album.
Wow, really?
Yeah, only because it was just kind of like, it was still pretty decent. It was melodic, minimal. It was rather surprising for their album, but it just didn't have that extra punch that a lot of these songs do have. It was missing something. It felt like rather undeveloped and didn't like reach to a certain peak as a lot of the other songs do. For example, the very last song, Falling Ashes, it sounds a lot of like Radiohead influence with a minimal piano kind of song. And it's very mellow, very somber toned, and it's very ambient, and just you get sucked into it. But even being so minimal, it has that peak and then that descent, where I felt like the song Star Roving had a plateau and didn't really peak at a single point. It just kind of had the same sound throughout the whole song.
So yes, Fallen Ashes. Sorry. It's definitely part of the Alex Gate piano last song conspiracy. But actually, that's what it's called, Alex Gate piano conspiracy. It actually is a really nice change of pace hearing them play piano, because I think it's the first time it's featured prominently, and it just adds something different. Like, I think this is a bit more post-rock just because it's a bit different. Actually, maybe not. Maybe it's just ambient, kind of. I mean, my two least favourites was Everyone Knows and Go Get It. I just thought they were a bit forgettable, but this one had such a weird build. Like, it's mainly just the piano and the two vocalists together, and I think this would be great to see live.
Yeah, I actually like Go Get It. I think it had a lot of experimental aspects to it, glitchy electronics and like guitars with high reverb, and I think they really sounded really great together.
The whole "I want to feel it, I want to see it" call and response thing they do is one of the best parts of the album. I just thought it had too much feedback and like, I don't know, it felt like the most shoegaze, like messy type song. I don't know, it was still really good. Like, the whole album is consistently good. It's just obviously some songs stood out more than others for me.
I especially love that song when it gets very loud with the heavy electronic guitars towards the chorus, and then those just really take the stage and take the cake on this album. I just love the guitars are played so gorgeously throughout this entire record. One more song I want to touch on, No Longer Making Time. It has a lot of post-rock influences. It reminds me a bit of like God is an Astronaut sort of thing, or Explosions in the Sky. And that's one of the songs where you can hear what he's talking about. Like, it's about a girl who only comes around when she needs it, and kind of using the guy as like a bounce back sort of rebound sort of thing. And the song feels like it's about to end, and then it builds back up to just more great sounds and just builds up to even more complex soundscape. So it's just really impressive overall.
This made me do a U-turn on Neil's vocals, because when I first heard Slow Mo, I thought he was like a bit weak, like a bit flawed. I don't know, but then just from the first listen of the album, at that point I had done a U-turn where I preferred his vocals to Rachel's somewhat, because it is like distinguishable, the lyrics, and I know people don't listen to shoegaze for the lyrics really, but they listen for the atmosphere, basically, the aesthetic. But I still really like lyrics in music. I like it to be a element at play, and they really were there, like you were saying. And I also think they rock out a bit more than usual on here. Nice popping drum sound.
Yeah, for sure.
I just love when bands who have such a... Look, Slowdive, they have at least two guitarists. I know Neil's one of them. And I think even Rachel plays guitar occasionally, but they have two guitarists at least, or at least they overlap guitars to the point of where it creates a cacophony, like hurricane of sound on some songs. Like, I think Star Roving's main atmosphere was that, which made it sound generic. So the fact that this one like does it to the point where it's like really catchy and distinct, and it's really good to me, I'd say.
So what do you think? Do you think this is a one-off thing, or do you think they're going to be back full-time making albums?
I think the jury's out on that, because they've been touring a little while, since at least 2014. I don't want to be mean, but I feel like it wouldn't be too hard for them to make more music, at least decent music. Like, they definitely have a formula to making this, if you know what I mean. Like, it wouldn't be too hard. Like, they could make more music in the same sound of this, and people would generally be happy. So I think they should. I'd be happy to see it because this is a really strong comeback.
So now here's the interesting thing: is this the year for a return for shoegaze? Because I think Ride is putting out an album this year too.
Yeah, I heard it. And if My Bloody Valentine, because it's been 4 years since MBV already. Like, that's long enough for any artist. Like, I know Paramore and Haim are coming back from that year. Can they? I don't know. It was already like 22 years between that and the 1991 album. So I guess, but yeah, Ride and Slowdive, that's could be the year of shoegaze.
Yeah, I'm just really impressed with this album overall. Like, there's not much more I can say about it because of a lot of the songs are just in the same quality level. I don't want to keep reiterating it. This was a good album. I would definitely recommend it. What would you rate this, Alex?
I'm gonna give it an 8. Really solid return. About as good as the general quality level of the band back in the early 90s, I'd say. I mean, Souvlaki is probably a bit better, but Just for a Day is about the same level as this, and I think it's actually a little bit better than Pygmalion. So I'd say it's a really fine addition to their discography, and I don't really have any thoughts apart from maybe some more memorable and experimental, unique songs, but as a whole, I can't really complain with this. Some of my favourite Slowdive songs are on here, like Slow Mo, Sugar for the Pill, and the last track, and also actually No More Late Making Time. So that's 4 of the album, or 4 of my half the album of my favourite Slowdive songs. So that's really good.
For sure. I think this for me it's an 8 as well. I think the only problem I had for this album in general was that it wasn't typical Slowdive. It was a bit more experimental, a bit more diversified, but that's really not a problem. It still sounds really good. Another small kink I had was that the vocals were so like heavily distorted and kind of like in the background that I wish they were a little bit more upfront, because I think they have really nice vocal dynamics. So with keeping those two things in mind, I still think this is an amazing album. One of the best Slowdive records. I mean, all of them are really good, but like,
yeah,
I would put this right above Pygmalion, equal to, like you said, Just for a Day. It's an awesome addition to the discography. I think that I'm glad they're back. I think that they can keep putting out more music, and I'd be just as excited to listen to it, because I'm glad that shoegaze is getting a bit of its revival this year.
So am I. It's a really good fin for music, I'd say.
Well, if that's it, then thanks for tuning to Bust Speakers. Let us know what you think about this Slowdive album in the comments below. Let us know what else we should review in the comments below, and check us out on social media.